and best blessings to you. My name is Janiera Nessier, and I am from Women's Work, Birth, Family, and Consulting Services. I am coming to you today because I have a bit of a concern that is more of a personal uh, one, and I've been doing some real interesting uh, hmm, introspection, I guess is a good way of putting it, about the subject that no one wants to talk about, but everyone should probably, and that is perimenopause and menopause, specifically as it pertains to Black women or women of color. Now, I guess maybe I'm now 47 years old, and for the past, call it 2 years, I've actually been exploring the conversation about menopause with women that are in my immediate circle. So I began my conversation by talking with my own mother and women that are in her age group, which is in their early 70s around this time. And what I found very interesting is that very many of the women that I'm speaking with don't can't really say that they actually had a natural onset of menopause. Very many of the women that I'm speaking with had some sort of procedure where they may have had like a hysterectomy, where their ovaries remain intact, but they actually had some sort of procedure that made it so that they don't really know what happens to the body in a very natural and organic way. So that led me to ask a whole bunch of other questions. Well, why is it that we as women don't really explore the totality of the things that menopause can actually help us to explore? For instance, I was reading a book by Christiane Northrup. This is the book that I'm reading. I find it interesting that there's not very much written about the topic on behalf or as it pertains to Black women. So far, I haven't really done my due diligence, and so I will go on the record as saying as much. And if you know of any books that you think are helpful or that you have found very helpful, or any information that you can lead me to that would help to kind of have a more in-depth conversation, one of substance, not just my observations, because I'm still very new to the topic. But I felt that it was important enough for many of us to actually have a conversation and say, well, what exactly does menopause look like? What are some of the symptoms that we commonly think of when we think of menopause, right? And then another thing that I want us to explore is um, what are the benefits of it? Because I think because we shy away from the experience of, or even having the conversation, I feel that that whole, because it becomes this vague place, it makes it so that we feel shameful. There's a certain like shying away that comes from, when my man mentioned something to me about menopause, I don't want to have that conversation with him, even though it affects him and it affects my children. Now my children are tired of hearing about it because they're young ladies. I'm more compelled to share with them, and I'll say, "Ooh, I'm having a hot flash. Oh Lord," I'm sharing with them very specific things about it because I don't want them to kind of come to it with the experience with some trepidation or feeling like I did, where you have to go and have very original conversations because no one said anything up to this point. I was having a real interesting dialogue with two of my sister friends, and we were talking offline about something. We were talking about hairs that are now growing, places that shouldn't be growing hairs when we're ladies. Like, how do I get hair on my chin? What is this about? And we're exploring the whole idea that this is just totally unnatural, and how do how do you still feel cute when you are looking at having to use your tweezers like twice a day to just make sure that your chin doesn't look like you know a full out 5 o'clock shadow business, and it's only 2:45 p.m. So these are kind of issues that I'm really looking at and trying to figure out, okay, how do I kind of come to a place in my own spiritual growth and development where I not only embrace that part of the womanish journey, but also help other women that are on this journey as well, because what's worse is to have these experiences and have no one to dialogue with them about it with. You know what I mean? So now you're sitting here and you have all this trepidation and you're worried about, well, what does this mean? Especially, is this the death of um my life as I now know it, or is this gonna how is this gonna impact my life overall? My sense of womanness and well-being, right? So these are the kind of things that I'm sort of grappling with when I'm dealing with this whole situation, is really trying to figure out, okay, what is the thing that I should take into this stage of my development? What is the lesson, right? Um, I can't really say that that is coming to my mind. I do know for a fact that this has been a very interesting period, and I would say it's been about maybe the last 2 years. And speaking of periods, it's like they fluctuate, and it's like sometimes the flow will be regular like it usually is, and then other times it'll kind of shift about a little bit, and it's not ever disappeared altogether for me, fortunately. Um, but it certainly has brought me to a situation where I've had to figure out, okay, well, is it, a few days later, is that something for me to be alarmed about, or can I feel in my body? And I've been in this body for a minute enough to really be able to feel when it is, when my period is getting ready to make its appearance. But um, because there's this shift that's happening, there's the question of whether or not the shift is affecting how and the frequency of it showing up. And so, um, and I don't know, I'll go on record by as saying that I'm a woman who enjoys getting my ladies' days. I enjoy having my cycle. And I think it's in part because it's my cue, it's nature's cue for me to shut down whatever I'm dealing with that's outside of me, right? And it almost, it's like it gives me permission to be internal and to be what's the word I'm looking for? To be quiet and to be serene, and just really think about what is going to be beneficial to me personally as a woman. And so because I have that as my the cue, um, that whole period of time, it helps me to be very much introverted. So I'm more into what I become more self-centered in that I'm thinking about everything as it pertains to me, the center of me, and how do I keep myself grounded. So that's something that I'm discovering is a little bit of a fear that I didn't realize was going to be present, because now I'm thinking, gosh, will I, if my ladies' days doesn't show up, will I know naturally, like, will my body still signal me, even though there's no flow, will my body still signal me to chill out, to take a minute, to get off the world, jump off this big ride, and to really become more closed, more centered, more grounded. Um, and because I value that about my womanist walk, and I value that about me as a person individually, I concern myself with that. Like, okay, how's this gonna how am I going to mm, integrate? I guess is a good word. How am I going to integrate this new experience of being alive now, and in a body that's approaching midlife, as opposed to this vivacious, vibrant person that and am I still her? It's like there's a lot of questions, because it's a lot of things that's not very, very clear for me, and because I'm still figuring it out, um, it's important to me to really crystallize as much as one can something that they don't know anything about, really, really. But one thing that I found was very interesting in this book that I'm reading um, is this Dr. Northrup. She talks about how the brain of a menopausal woman is being totally rewired, right? So it's like all these signals that tell you to take a minute to nurture and care for others and to think about others and put their agenda and their desires before yours. During midlife, this whole thing, um, it shifts and it becomes a thing where now you you become more self-centered. You become there's a sense of palpable urgency that makes you sort of want to hurry up and get on with the next stage of your life. There's an excitement because now you're not focused on the babies, right? You're not focused on the husband. You're thinking about things that are going to be gratifying to you as a human being and you as a woman. So it sort of is like the magic to me is the panacea, if you will, for the next stage of our development. If we're not paying attention to it, though, we miss the magic part. If we don't understand and know what's happening in the brain, why is it that our memories are seeming to be reframed? I found that certain experiences that I am remembering, I'm remembering them in a way that sort of appears to be a reframing of sorts. You know, like I'm thinking about them as it pertains to um, where I am in my own spiritual development right now. So that, for instance, if something that someone did to me in the past or did in my past makes me feel some sort of way, or did make me feel some sort of way, it, I now have figured out a way to uh, reframe that memory so that it doesn't cause me angst. Because I guess there's a part of me that realizes that, you know, life is short and, you know, you don't have time for foolishness. So if people are, I don't know, I think it's at a point where you start to feel not only a sense of urgency, but also a need to let go of foolishness and things that don't really change the price of beans. You know what I'm talking about? It's like, okay, this is, I heard you, or I understand that, but that is not relevant to my now experience. And so those are the kind of things that um, I tend to be thinking about and wanting to focus my energy on things that matter more, you know, or that should matter. If they, you know, if I don't realize that they matter, why don't I realize that they matter? And what can I do to bring my understanding to the present, you know? So I don't know. I won't belabor this video. This is also my intro to really trying to figure out how to utilize this tool known as Google um, Plus and this whole live hangout business, because I really want to use this as a medium. I want to really hear your thoughts and your feelings about this experience, you know. If you haven't already found yourself moving toward the experience of menopause or perimenopause, and you have some questions, or even if you are a person who is a little bit further ahead on the spiral of womanness than I am, and you have some insight or things that you do that would maybe help you to cope with the emotionality of the experience, um, or you know, you just may want to just have some dialogue like I'm asking for. Feel free to zoom into me, you know, check me out, send me an email, uh, you know, just kind of connect to me however you think is best and right. And I would love to really, you know, mesh it up a little bit and figure out what it is that, you know, just have some dialogue, man. You know, I think it's important, you know. It's certainly important enough in the sense that I know for a fact that the women in my circle, I'm the one that's bringing the conversation to the table, and I don't understand why we have this mystery behind it. You know, menopause shouldn't be a mystery, and maybe that'll be the next, the next title of my video is, you know, maybe it'll be something like menopause isn't a mystery, or the mystery of menopause, or something very esoteric like that. That would be. Um, I think that would be kind of it would pique the interest enough for somebody to say, well, what does that mean? And maybe come into the video room. At any rate, I hope you enjoy your Friday. Uh, and stay tuned for more of these weird sort of missives.